Dr. Chen had been working at the Space Research Center for almost 10 years, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened that Tuesday morning. He was in his lab, checking some routine data on atmospheric conditions, when suddenly all the alarms started going off at once. The sound was deafening, echoing through the entire facility. His phone buzzed with an emergency alert. A distress signal had been detected just outside Earth's atmosphere. Within minutes, everyone in the building was running around, trying to figure out what was happening. The signal was unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't from any satellite or space station they knew about. 2 hours later, Dr. Chen found himself in a military helicopter, flying over the Nevada desert. Below them, a small crater was still smoking. Something had crashed there, and it had crashed hard. The impact site was surrounded by military vehicles, and soldiers were setting up a perimeter. When they landed, Dr. Chen grabbed his equipment and rushed toward the crater. His heart was pounding. As a xenobiologist, he had spent his entire career studying the possibility of alien life. But he never actually expected to encounter it. Most scientists didn't. They talked about it, theorized about it, but deep down, many thought it would never really happen. At the bottom of the crater sat a small metallic pod. It was silver and smooth, with strange symbols etched into its surface. The metal seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, changing colors slightly as you looked at it from different angles. The recovery team had already scanned it for radiation and other dangers. Everything checked out as safe, so they carefully opened the hatch. Dr. Chen climbed down into the crater and looked inside the pod. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. There was someone in there. A woman. But she wasn't human. Her skin had a silvery tone to it, almost like liquid metal, and there were glowing markings running along her arms and neck. She was unconscious, wearing what looked like a dress made of the same metallic material as the pod. The team carefully lifted her out and placed her on a stretcher. She was breathing, but her vital signs were all wrong by human standards. Her heart rate was too slow, her body temperature was unusually high, and the medical equipment kept giving strange readings. They transported her immediately to the research facility's medical wing, where they had a special quarantine area designed for exactly this kind of situation. Dr. Chen didn't leave her side during the entire journey back. He kept monitoring her condition, taking notes, trying to understand what he was looking at. This was real. This was actually happening. An alien being was lying right in front of him. Back at the facility, they placed her in a secure medical room with controlled atmosphere and temperature. The room was kept at a comfortable 72 degrees, the same temperature they maintained throughout the building. They hooked her up to monitoring equipment and waited. For 3 days, she remained unconscious. Dr. Chen barely slept during that time. He stayed in the observation room, watching her, studying her, trying to learn everything he could. Her skin would occasionally flicker with light, like electricity running just beneath the surface. The dress she wore seemed to pulse with a faint glow, matching the rhythm of her breathing. Other scientists came and went, each one amazed by what they were seeing. The director of the facility held daily briefings with government officials. Everyone wanted answers, but Dr. Chen had none to give. All he could do was wait and watch. On the morning of the 4th day, something changed. Dr. Chen was sitting in his observation chair, drinking his 5th cup of coffee. When he noticed her fingers moving, he sat up straight, his exhaustion forgotten. Her eyes opened slowly, and they were the most beautiful and strange thing he had ever seen. They were violet, a deep purple color that seemed to glow from within. She looked around the room, confused and frightened. Then her eyes found him through the observation window. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Two beings from different worlds, meeting for the first time. Dr. Chen stood up and moved to the intercom. "Hello," he said softly. "Can you understand me? You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you." She tilted her head, listening to his voice. Her lips moved, and sounds came out, but they weren't any language he had ever heard. It was musical, almost like singing, but with strange clicks and tones that human vocal cords couldn't reproduce. She tried again, this time pointing to herself. Dr. Chen grabbed a tablet and started playing recordings of different languages, hoping she might recognize something. She watched intently, and slowly, very slowly, she started to mimic some of the sounds. She was learning. Fast. By the end of that first day of consciousness, she could say a few words in English. "Here," she said, pointing around the room. "Safe," she repeated, nodding. Then she pointed to herself and made a sound that was close to Lyra. That became her name, because it was the closest they could get to pronouncing what she called herself. Everything seemed to be going well until the fourth day after Lyra woke up. Dr. Chen arrived at the facility early that morning, as he always did, ready to continue his work with her. They had made good progress. She was learning English quickly, much faster than any human could learn a new language. She could now form simple sentences and ask basic questions. But when he entered the observation room, something was immediately wrong. The alarms on the medical monitors were beeping urgently. Inside the quarantine room, Lyra was lying on the bed, clearly in distress. Her silver skin was covered in what looked like sweat, and it was dripping onto the sheets. The glowing marks on her arms were flickering rapidly, like a light bulb about to burn out. Dr. Chen rushed to the intercom. "Lyra, what's wrong? What's happening?" She turned her head toward him, and he could see the pain in her violet eyes. She was breathing hard, struggling with each breath. Her hand reached up and grabbed at the metallic dress she was wearing, pulling at it weakly. "Hot," she gasped. "Too hot. Help me." Dr. Chen checked the room temperature. It was still at 72 degrees, exactly where it had been since she arrived. But clearly, something was wrong. He called the medical team immediately, and within minutes, several doctors and scientists were crowding into the observation room, looking at the monitors and trying to figure out what was happening. The readings were alarming. Lyra's body temperature had spiked dramatically. It was now at a level that would be fatal to a human. Her heart rate had increased, and her breathing was becoming more labored by the minute. Whatever was happening, it was happening fast. Dr. Chen watched helplessly as Lyra struggled on the bed. She kept pulling at her dress, tugging at it with weak fingers. Then she looked directly at him through the window and said something that made his heart stop. "Please," she said, her English suddenly much clearer despite her distress. "Dress off. Take off. Please. Die if not." The room fell silent. Everyone looked at each other, uncertain. The protocols were clear. No direct physical contact with the alien specimen, until they understood more about her biology. It was a safety measure, both for them and for her. But Lyra was clearly in crisis, and she was asking for help. Dr. Chen made a decision. He turned to the head medical officer. "I'm going in. She's asking for help, and we can't just stand here and watch her suffer." "Dr. Chen, the protocols." "I know the protocols," he interrupted. "But look at her. She's dying. We have to do something." The medical officer hesitated, then nodded. "Suit up. Full protective gear. And we'll be monitoring everything from here." Dr. Chen quickly put on the protective suit, checked the seals, and entered the quarantine room through the airlock. The moment he stepped inside, he could feel that something was off. The air felt thick, almost electric. There was a strange humming sound, so low he could barely hear it. But he could feel it, in his chest. He approached Lyra's bed carefully. Up close, he could see that her skin was literally hot. The air above her body was shimmering, the way it does over hot pavement in summer. The metallic dress she wore was glowing brighter than usual, and it seemed to be getting hotter by the second. "Lyra," he said softly, "I'm here. I'm going to help you." She looked at him with desperate eyes. "Dress," she whispered. "Off. Burns me. Please." Dr. Chen's hands shook as he reached for the dress. He didn't know how it fastened or if there were buttons or zippers. But as his fingers touched the metallic fabric, he felt it respond. It was warm, almost uncomfortably so, and it seemed to loosen at his touch, as if it was designed to do so. Working as carefully and quickly as he could, trying to maintain her dignity while also responding to the emergency, he helped her remove the dress. The medical team watching from outside began shouting observations and instructions, but Dr. Chen was focused entirely on Lyra. What he saw when the dress came off shocked him completely. Her body wasn't entirely solid, like a human's. Parts of her torso and limbs were partially see-through, translucent. And beneath that translucent skin, he could see what looked like glowing organs. They pulsed with light, creating patterns that moved through her body like rivers of energy. The moment the dress was completely off, the change was immediate. The translucent parts of her body began glowing brighter, but with a cool blue light instead of the hot red they had been. She took a deep breath, and her whole body seemed to relax. The temperature in the room began to drop noticeably. Dr. Chen quickly grabbed a cooling blanket from the medical supply cabinet and draped it over her, trying to give her some privacy. His face felt hot, and he was grateful for the protective suit that hid his embarrassment. "Thank you," Lyra said, her voice much stronger now. "You saved life. Thank you." Over the next several days, Dr. Chen spent every possible moment trying to understand what had happened and learning more about Lyra. The medical team had analyzed the metallic dress and discovered something fascinating. It wasn't just clothing. It was a sophisticated piece of technology, designed to regulate body temperature and energy levels. On Lyra's home planet, which she called Theraxis, this kind of technology was essential for survival. As she explained to Dr. 2000, Chen, in her improving English, her people had evolved on a world with extreme temperature changes. During the day, temperatures could soar to levels that would melt lead. At night, they dropped below freezing. Her species had developed the ability to absorb heat and convert it into energy that their bodies could use. "We eat heat," she tried to explain, making gestures to help him understand. "Like you eat food. Heat is food for us. But too much. And we cook inside. The dress, it helps. It takes extra heat away." Dr. Chen was fascinated. "So, when the dress stopped working properly in our atmosphere?" "Yes." Lyra nodded. "It trapped heat instead of releasing it. Made me hotter and hotter. Would have killed me. Why didn't you tell us sooner that something was wrong?" Lyra looked down at her hands, which were still partially translucent. "I tried. But words. Hard. By the time I could speak enough, already very sick. Happened. Fast." The research team worked around the clock to create a new garment for Lyra that would work properly in Earth's atmosphere. It took them almost a week, but finally, they succeeded. The new suit was lighter, more flexible, and designed specifically for Earth's climate conditions. During this time, Dr. Chen and Lyra developed an unusual friendship. She was curious about everything on Earth. She asked questions constantly. Why did humans wear so many different types of clothes? Why was water so important to them? Why did they sleep for such long periods instead of taking short rest breaks throughout the day? In return, she told him about her world. She described cities that glowed in the darkness, powered by the heat of the planet itself. She talked about her people's art, which involved creating sculptures from crystallized heat energy. She explained their government, which was based on consensus and cooperation rather than competition. "We sent many explorers," she told him one afternoon as they sat in the observation room, "to find other beings like us, other thinking beings. I volunteered, wanted to see the universe, wanted to meet others. And your ship malfunctioned?" "Yes. Something wrong with navigation system. Came too close to your planet. Got caught by gravity. Lucky I survived crash. Dr. Chen wanted to know everything. But as the days passed, he became aware of a growing problem. Government officials and military leaders were visiting the facility more frequently. They asked pointed questions about Lyra's technology. They wanted to know about her ship, her planet's location, her people's capabilities. During one meeting, a general asked bluntly, "Can we replicate her technology? Can we use it?" Dr. Chen had tried to steer the conversation back to peaceful scientific exchange, but the general wasn't interested. Dr. Chen, this being, arrived on our planet in an advanced spacecraft. We need to understand the technology for national security purposes. That night, Dr. Chen couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the look in Lyra's eyes when she talked about her mission. She had come in peace, hoping to make friends with humanity, and now she was essentially a prisoner, being studied not for scientific advancement, but for military advantage. The next day, he asked Lyra a careful question. On your world, what happens when someone saves another person's life? Lyra's translucent fingers touched the spot over her heart. We call it threshold rescue. When someone pulls you back from the edge of ending, it creates bond. Strong bond. Like family, but different. It means trust. Complete trust. Is that how you see us? Me, I mean? She looked at him with those striking violet eyes. You didn't have to help me. You could have watched me die through the glass, safe behind your walls. But you came in. You risked yourself to help me, even though you were frightened. Yes, there is bond now. Dr. Chen felt the weight of that statement. She trusted him completely, and he was beginning to realize that he might be the only person in the entire facility who saw her as a person rather than as an opportunity. That realization became even more clear the following week when the facility director called a meeting. Dr. Chen sat in the conference room with a dozen other scientists, military officials, and government representatives. The director stood at the front of the room, a serious expression on her face. We've made a decision, she announced. The alien visitor will be transferred to a secure military facility for extended study. The timeline is classified, but the transfer will happen within the next 72 hours. Dr. Chen felt his stomach drop. What does extended study mean? The director looked uncomfortable. That's classified. Will she be able to contact her people? Will we try to arrange for her to return home? Those decisions will be made at a higher level, Dr. Chen. Your job was to ensure her initial survival and begin preliminary research. That job is complete. Dr. Chen looked around the room at the faces of his colleagues. Some looked troubled, others looked excited by the opportunity, but no one was objecting. No one was standing up for Lyra's rights as a sentient being. The news of the transfer hit Dr. Chen hard. He spent that night walking around his apartment, unable to sit still. His mind kept going back to Lyra's trust, to the way she had looked at him when she talked about the threshold rescue bond. She had come to Earth, hoping to build bridges between civilizations. Instead, she was going to be locked away in some secret facility, studied and questioned indefinitely. He knew what he had to do, but the thought terrified him. Everything he had worked for his entire life was at stake. His career, his reputation, possibly even his freedom. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Lyra's face, heard her voice talking about trust and bonds. The next morning, he arrived at the facility before dawn. He used his security clearance to access the communications array room. It was a risk, but he was betting that nobody would question a senior scientist checking equipment early in the morning. His hands were shaking as he began modifying the array's settings. He had been studying Lyra's descriptions of her people's technology. She had mentioned that they used heat signatures and energy patterns for communication over long distances. It was different from Earth's radio waves, but the principles were similar enough that he thought he could adapt the facility's equipment to send a signal that her people might detect. It took him 3 hours to set everything up. Then he went to Lyra's room. She was awake, looking out the window at the sunrise. The new suit they had made for her fit perfectly, and her translucent areas glowed softly with their normal blue light. "Lyra," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something important. Can you show me how to send a signal to your people? A distress signal?" She turned to him, surprise in her eyes. "Why?" "Because they're going to move you to a military facility. They're not going to let you go home. And I think that's wrong. They're really, if 5 are, and in the pot. They're really, and in the pot." Lyra was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "If you help me, you will be in trouble. Big trouble. I know. Why would you risk this?" Dr. Chen thought about how to explain it. "Because you came here hoping to meet friends. And friends don't lock friends in cages. Because you trusted me, and I can't betray that trust. And because it's the right thing to do." Lyra's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Threshold rescue," she said softly. "You saved me again." Together, they went to the communications array. Lyra looked at the equipment, tilting her head as she examined it. Then she began making adjustments, her fingers moving over the controls with surprising confidence. She explained to Dr. Chen that her people's distress signals used specific patterns of energy pulses, like a code. "How long until they can get here?" he asked. "If they receive signal and come at full speed, maybe 3 of your days." 3 days. That meant they had to delay the transfer somehow, or find a way to get Lyra out of the facility before it happened. Dr. Chen's mind raced through possibilities, each one more complicated than the last. The signal was sent. Now they just had to wait and hope. For the next 2 days, Dr. Chen went about his work as normally as possible, trying not to raise suspicion. But inside, he was a mess of nerves. Every time someone looked at him, he was convinced they knew what he had done. Every announcement over the facility's speakers made his heart jump. On the second night, Lyra received a response. The communications array picked up a pattern of energy pulses that matched the distress signal she had sent. Her people had received the message. They were coming. They would arrive the next night and would wait at a location about 50 miles from the facility. "Now we just need to get you out of here," Dr. Chen said. "How?" Lyra asked. "Security everywhere. Cameras, locked doors." Dr. Chen had been thinking about this problem constantly. The facility had excellent security, but it also had weaknesses. Most of those weaknesses came from the fact that the security system was designed to keep people out, not to keep people in. The scientists who worked there needed to be able to move freely for their research. "The transfer is scheduled for tomorrow night," he said. "That's actually good for us. There will be confusion, people moving equipment, preparing the transport. If we can create a distraction at the right moment." They spent hours planning every detail. The risk was enormous. If they were caught, the consequences would be severe. But Dr. Chen had made his choice. He was going to help Lyra get home, no matter what it cost him. The next evening arrived too quickly. The facility was busy with preparations for the transfer. Military personnel were everywhere, checking security, preparing vehicles, organizing equipment. Dr. Chen could barely breathe. His chest felt tight, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. At exactly 8 o'clock, he put their plan into motion. He went to one of the research labs and triggered a false alarm in the chemical storage area. Immediately, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Emergency protocols kicked in. People rushed to evacuate the wing, and security personnel ran to investigate the potential hazard. In the chaos, Dr. Chen made his way to Lyra's room. He used his override code to unlock her door. "Now," he said simply. They moved quickly through the corridors, avoiding the main hallways where security cameras were most concentrated. Dr. Chen knew every inch of the facility, knew which routes had blind spots in the camera coverage. They made it to the vehicle bay, where Dr. Chen had prepared one of the research vehicles earlier in the day. They climbed in, and he started driving. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. Every second, he expected to hear alarms, to see security vehicles chasing them. But the distraction was working. Everyone was focused on the chemical storage emergency. The desert stretched out endlessly in front of them as Dr. Chen drove through the night. The facility's lights grew smaller and smaller behind them until finally they disappeared completely. The only light came from the stars above and the vehicle's headlights cutting through the darkness. Lyra sat in the passenger seat, her translucent fingers pressed against the window as she looked out at the landscape. "Your world is beautiful," she said softly. "So different from mine, but beautiful." Dr. Chen kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see pursuers at any moment. "They'll realize soon that you're gone. They'll come looking. Do you regret helping me?" He thought about the question. Did he regret it? He had thrown away his career, probably broken several laws, and would likely face serious consequences. But when he looked at Lyra, at the hope in her violet eyes, he found that he didn't regret it at all. "No," he said. "I don't regret it." They drove for another hour. Following the coordinates Lyra had given him, the landscape became rougher, more remote. Finally, they reached a flat area surrounded by rocky hills. Dr. Chen stopped the vehicle and turned off the engine. "This is the place," Lyra said. They got out and stood in the cool desert air. The silence was profound. Dr. Chen could hear his own breathing, his own heartbeat. He looked up at the stars and wondered which one was Lyra's home. "How long do we wait?" he asked. "They said they would be here when the stars reached this position." She pointed at a particular constellation. "Soon." They sat on the hood of the vehicle, waiting. Dr. Chen found himself thinking about what would happen next. The facility would have discovered his part in Lyra's escape by now. They would be looking for him. His life as he knew it was over. "What will you tell your people?" he asked Lyra. "About Earth? About humans?" She was quiet for a moment, considering. "I will tell them that humans are complex, that some are afraid, and fear makes them want to control things they don't understand. But I will also tell them about you. About someone who chose kindness over fear. About someone who understood that doing the right thing is more important than following rules. Will they come back? Your people? Maybe. Someday. When humans are ready. When there are more like you." A sound made them both look up. At first, Dr. Chen thought it was a shooting star. But then he realized it was moving too slowly, too deliberately. A light was descending from the sky, growing brighter as it approached. The ship was nothing like he had expected. It looked like liquid mercury, constantly shifting and changing shape. It landed softly about 50 yards away, making no sound at all. A door opened in the side of the ship, and 3 figures emerged. They looked similar to Lyra, with the same silvery skin and translucent sections glowing with inner light. They approached cautiously, and Lyra ran to meet them. Dr. Chen watched as she spoke with them in her musical language. They kept looking at him, and he wondered what she was saying. After a few minutes, Lyra walked back to him. Behind her, the other 3 waited by the ship. "They want to take me home now," she said. "But I asked them something first, and they said yes." "Asked them what?" Lyra looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Come with me. Come to my world. Be the first human to see Theraxis. Help us understand each other better. Be the bridge between our peoples." Dr. Chen felt like all the air had been sucked out of his lungs. "What? I can't just..." "Why not? What is left for you here? You said yourself. You broke their rules to help me. They will punish you. But on my world, you would be honored. You would be celebrated as the human who chose friendship over fear. He looked back the way they had come. She was right. There was nothing left for him at the facility. His career was over. He would probably face criminal charges. And yet, the idea of leaving Earth, of traveling to another planet, was terrifying. But it was also the most exciting thing anyone had ever offered him. Will I be able to come back? Someday? Yes. When both worlds are ready. Dr. Chen thought about everything he would be leaving behind. His apartment, his belongings, his colleagues, his world. But he also thought about everything he might discover. A chance to see an alien civilization up close. A chance to be part of something bigger than himself. A chance to prove that humans and aliens could work together. Could be friends. He looked at Lyra, at her hopeful expression, and he made his decision. "Tell me about your world," he said. "Tell me everything." Lyra's face broke into a wide smile, and she took his hand. Together, they walked toward the ship. The other aliens watched them approach, their expressions welcoming. As they reached the door, Dr. Chen took one last look back at Earth, at the desert landscape, bathed in starlight. Then he stepped inside the ship, and the door closed behind them. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with gentle light, and the temperature was perfectly comfortable. There were no seats, but soft platforms that adjusted to support whoever sat on them. As the ship began to rise, Dr. Chen looked through what might have been a window or might have been a screen. He watched Earth grow smaller beneath them, watched as they left the atmosphere and entered space. He had spent his entire life studying the possibility of alien life, and now he was experiencing it firsthand. Lyra sat beside him, still holding his hand. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "But also, more excited than I've ever been in my life." "Good. That is the right way to feel when starting an adventure." The ship accelerated, and stars streaked past them. Somewhere far behind, back on Earth, people were probably searching for them. But Dr. Chen didn't think about that. Instead, he thought about what lay ahead. A new world. A new culture. A new understanding. He had saved Lyra's life. And in return, she had given him something invaluable. A chance to be part of humanity's first true friendship with an alien species. Not a relationship based on fear or military advantage, but one built on trust, respect, and mutual curiosity. As the ship carried them toward Theraxis, Dr. Chen smiled. His old life was over, but a new one was just beginning, and he couldn't wait to see what came next.